guys, it's me, and today I'm here with my December wrap up. I know I said on my January TBR that it was going to go on the same day as it, but then January 1st actually ended up being busier than expected because stuff. So yeah, I'm filming this on January 2nd. I don't know yet when I'm gonna put this up, but these are all the books I read in the month of December. I read 11 books, which I'm actually really proud of. And yeah, and I think besides one, there are also like full-length books that are books, you know, because these past few months I've been hitting 10 books, but mostly because I've been trying graphic novels, mangas, books stolen poetry, and verse, and I have one of those right now. But most of them are like full-length novels. They look so good. I also own most of them, which is also feels so good because I haven't been reading books, like physical books, in a very long time because my brain just wasn't computing. I don't know. But yeah, December was a good reading month for me, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. As always, there's timestamps in the description below, as well as content warnings for each book. Let's just get started. The first book I read this month is an ebook, but what you're gonna do about it, and it's The Last Namsara by Kristin Ciccarelli. I don't know how to pronounce it, I'm so sorry. But this book takes place in this book is a YA fantasy about a girl who is the daughter of like the king, and in this world there are like these stories that are attached to the dragons, and it's said that if you tell the stories, the stories will make you sick and you'll eventually die. So and because the queen has died of this, the king is very much against stories and dragons, and just happens to be that his daughter is a great dragon hunter slash killer. And yeah, before this girl, as she is trying to kill the first dragon, who, if that dragon dies, all the dragons will die, as well as all the stories. The book is very complicated, especially if you don't want to spoil it, so I hope I did a great explanation for that. But I gave this book 3 stars, I believe. If not, I'm sorry, but here's 3 stars. And yeah, I feel like it has a very interesting concept and the world is very interesting, but the execution is just very generic. It just reads like a very generic YA fantasy, and therefore it was very predictable. Like, I don't know, like, I knew which characters were going to turn out to be the bad guys. I knew which characters were looking like the bad guy right now but would eventually turn into a hero, and I knew which romances were going to happen, like all in like the first 3 chapters, which, you know, isn't ideal. The next book I read is it's probably only kind of like seasonal book, but the last book out this month is also kind of seasonal, but well. But the book I'm talking about right now is 10 Blind Date by Ashley Elston. This is a YA contemporary about a girl who, like, her sister is pregnant and there's some complications, so her parents decide to go to her to help her out, but she decides to stay home and go to her grandparents over Christmas. At least that's what she tells her parents. Actually, what she wants to do is spend this free time together with her boyfriend because busyness of school hasn't been happening. But then she goes to this party and overhears her boyfriend talking about how he wants to wake up with her, so she breaks up with him because power. And eventually she just decides to go to her grandparents, where her whole family is, and most of them she hasn't spoken to in a while, but because of her heartbreak, the whole family decides to organize these 10 blind dates. Every person gets to organize a different date that the girl will go on to kind of just get over her ex, and possibly some other romance will develop in this. So yeah, I gave this book 4 stars, I believe, and that's because I really enjoyed this. I think it was a very fun read, and in the beginning I don't know, it felt very juvenile and it was just like, I don't know about this book. But then as we got more towards the end, I realized how much I cared about this family and these characters. I think the dates were also very fun, and I don't know, not always what I expected, which also kept things fresh. And yeah, it was just a fun read. It's not gonna be one of my new favorites ever because it's a 4 star, favorites are 5 stars, but I still would highly recommend this if you just want a fun time. The next book I already gave a sneak peek to you in for my November wrap-up because I was reading this already, but that's Bonjour Shanghai by Isabelle Lafleche. This is the sequel to Bonjour Girl, which I read in November, so I'm talking about it. This is a YA contemporary about, like, the first book is about a girl who, like, lives in Paris and goes to school there, but something bad happens, scandalous, and she wants to get out of that place, and therefore she ends up going to college, like a fashion college in New York, because she wants to be like this big fashion blogger. But then turns out in New York also scandalous things are happening around her. She can't escape it. And yeah, this book 2 gave it 2 stars. And this was worse than book 1. Definitely worse. My problem with these books is that they're just very juvenile, which this also was a little bit juvenile, but this is about kids in high school, and like, I get it. But Bonjour Girl, like, than Bonjour Shanghai is probably even more juvenile, and it's about college kids, adults. I've constantly also being told that our main character is so mature and so, I don't know, professional for her age, and she's always the biggest person. I'm just like, she's the biggest drama queen in the entire world. And like, she starts talking in this book, she starts talking to a guy just on a friendly basis, and she immediately is like, oh my god, I'm cheating on my boyfriend, what the hell am I doing? I'm just like, you just said hi to a guy. If your boyfriend doesn't understand that that's okay, you have a problem. And what I feel like this book for a lot of things is on the same level as the first one. The only thing that more one is it introduced very serious topics, like her boyfriend ends up having to testify against like one of his employers because he, like, the employer got accused of sexual assault by one of the models. Her boyfriend is a photographer, and I feel like that's a very important topic to be dealt with, especially in this day and age. But we got a little bit of it in the beginning, and then a little bit of it in the end, which is basically as, like, they found, like, incriminating evidence, and I don't have to testify anymore. So basically all of it was for nothing. And I'm just like, and all of this, like, kind of the main problem is, like, a teacher doesn't like me, and this boy does like me, like, too much a little bit, but I have a boyfriend, so, like, I'm just like, those are your main issues of this book, while you have a sexual assault B-plot in it, which isn't very well explored at all, isn't talked about at all. And also her best friend is dealing with a gambling addiction, and again, a little bit in the beginning, to, like, show, like, yo, we're doing something, and in the end, like, yo, it's resolved, but we don't see what's happening. I just feel like these are very interesting and important topics that could have been discussed, but it didn't do that for the sake of, like, very childish drama. Let's move on. The next book I read is These Broken Stars by Amie Kaufman and Meagan. I picked this up this month in a thrift store because I heard a lot of people, like, talk about this, and I saw it there for pretty cheap, so I thought I'd pick it up. And then I just picked it out of a TBR chat to, like, read it, and oh my god, this is a YA sci-fi, and this is about a boy and a girl. The girl is, like, a socialite, and the guy is just, comes from a poor family, is now a war hero, but still social protocol doesn't want them interacting at all. But they end up on the same spaceship at the same party, and they do talk a little bit there, but during this party the spaceship ends up crashing, and they are the only 2 people who are able to escape and still be alive, because there's some people would still get into an escape pod and try to get out, but the escape pod crashes as well and they die as well. So these are the only 2 people from this space fleet making it alive, and they strand on this island, which, not on this island, on this planet, which looks like it has been colonized. Like, it shows every sign of a colonized planet, but there's no people there at all. So there's a mystery surrounding the planet, and also a little bit of a romance between the 2 characters, as well as a mostly focus on survival, because they're on a planet and they have no way to communicate towards other people. So yeah, I love this. Like, not really loved it, I gave this 4 stars, but like still from what I was expecting from this book, I loved it. Because originally when this book went around on BookTube, which was a couple of years ago, this was described as Titanic in space, which I don't know if you know, but Titanic, I immediately think of romance and romance everything. Also at Discover, I just thought like this is just gonna be so romance heavy, but it wasn't. Like the romance doesn't really kick in till like the last third of the book, and even then the mystery of the planet is more prominent. And oh my god, this was so interesting. I flew through this in one day, in one sitting, and it was pretty late already, but like I still did it. And I don't know what else to say. These characters were not the best. They were a little bit annoying, and this planet was just so interesting, and I really want to continue on to the series because this world is so interesting and this was told so well. Then the next book I read is The Chosen by Taran Matharu. I think that's how I pronounce his name. I'm so sorry if I mispronounce any names. But this is a YA, fantasy, sci-fi-ish, I don't really know. This is about a guy who is at like boarding school and he gets caught for stealing laptops, but he didn't do it. But everybody believes that he did it, so he gets put in front of a judge. The judge decides like you have to go to like this disciplinary school, I will call it, for like a year at least before you can go to any other school. That's like your punishment. So he goes to the school. Things aren't really good because like these guys know he comes from a boarding school, so they're assuming he's just like a rich kid, which he wasn't because he was there on a scholarship. So he's bullied there, but then one day he ends up being transported into like this very strange world with his bullies and some other people, and you just have to figure out what this world is, how to survive, and how to get out of there, basically. I could tell you more about it, but it would be spoilery. But yeah, this again was a 3-star, but the same as the Last Namsara is that this plot was very interesting, but the execution just didn't really work for me. And it just, because I feel like it was not well enough done. I just feel like the characters were very underdeveloped and just fell into this like very formulaic like character structure. I don't know if but like you have the bad guy, you have the good guy, you have the pretty girl, and it's just like, I don't know, it felt very much into like these stereotypes, but just like these typical characters, and there was never really any development for them. Yeah, but I do think the world is very interesting. And the next book after that is The Tower in Sky by Katherine McGee, which is the 3rd book in the 1000 Floor series. This takes place in a near future where specifically New York has kind of, it's not really a thing anymore, but has been put in like this large tower, and they're doing that to other cities as well. But the higher up you are in a tower, the higher up you are in society, and we follow a bunch of girls mainly, but also one guy, who are more at like the top of the building, and especially this one girl called Avery who lives on the 1000th floor, which is the top floor with her parents, because her dad is basically the one who invented this whole thing. And we also follow, I believe, 1 or 2 people who are lower in the building. So yeah, and in the beginning of book 1 we get this like glimpse in the future, I'll say that, of someone falling off the roof of the building, and we don't know who it is, if they were pushed, if they jumped, if they just accidentally fell, or like who was with them. We don't know anything. But then we go back in time and we kind of lead up to the events of that in the 1st book, and in the 2nd book we deal with the repercussions of that, and something happens in that again, and then in this book we deal with repercussions of all of it, because basically everyone has a secret, and in this book kind of all our secrets, like, we get to deal with them because they are threatened to be coming out. So yeah, this I gave 4 stars. This was so much fun. The reason I love these books is because they're so much fun. I think they've been compared to Gossip Girl and Pretty Little Liars, which I think great comparisons. I feel like if you like Gossip Girl, Pretty Little Liars, you also like this series. Like, it's not like one of my favorite series because it's high quality. It's one of my favorite like series because it's high enjoyment, and I'll stand by that because, you know, sometimes you gotta have fun in life, and this series very much is that. I really like these characters. Like, I don't know, I have so much fun with the series, and I can't really explain to you. I do still think the first book is my favorite. I don't know, that was just so addicting, and I think I inhaled read it basically, and then the second book was a little bit of a drag, and then this one picked up a little bit more. The only problem I have is all of the books have like this mystery element in it, but like the mystery element in this book, like the resolution of it was already hinted towards at the end of the second book, which I was like, what's the point of making a whole book about who done it when you basically told us who done it in this book before it? Then the next book I read was actually a reread, and it's Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children by Ransom. I really want to reread the series in like preparation for the 5th book, so I started with this one. This is a YA fantasy, historical fantasy series about Jacob Portman, who grew up with his grandfather always telling him like the stories about this orphanage in Wales on this island, like this tiny island, and like during the war he lived there, and like, he fled there, and they like took care of him, and all of the people at this orphanage are like these children with like superpowers, like peculiarities as they call it in this book. And as Jacob grows older, he starts to believe these stories less and less, and just starts seeing them as kind of like his grandfather trying to disguise the horrors of the war, because, you know, it's what people tend to do. And then one day his grandfather calls him and is just completely in distress and sounds like he's in danger. So Jacob decides to go there, check it out, and he finds his grandfather dead. And according to Jacob, monsters that look like this killed his grandfather, but everybody else believes the grandfather was killed by wild dogs. But when Jacob then goes through the things of his grandfather, he finds letters from the head of the orphanage to his grandfather, so he decides to go check it out and ask the person questions about his grandfather. So yeah, he ends up traveling to Wales with his dad to try and figure this out, like just try and give Jacob some peace after the death of his father. And yeah, Jacob ends up finding this orphanage, this house, like this home for peculiar children. I was trying to tie it in with the title. Like, he finds the orphanage, and turns out that his grandfather's stories weren't the lies he thought he were. And stuff happened, because it's a 5-book series, you know? And yeah, I'm really glad that we read this. I give this 5 stars. After reading the 4th book, which, like, I'm still assuming it's my favorite book, but after that one I was just like, I don't know if those other books would be 5 stars, because this just feels like a very high step up from the rest. But this still was a 5 star to me. I just loved being back into this world and falling in love with these characters, and you get so slowly introduced into this world. You discover just like piece by piece, just little by little, everything together with Jacob, and it's done so brilliantly. You take the time to know this world piece by piece. You're not just like thrown in and are trying to figure it out. And I really like that. And I love it so much. I do, like, originally when this was like talked about, the whole appeal of it was like creepy pictures, but I've never really gotten that. I don't really think the pictures are creepy. Like, yeah, some are unsettling, but most of them, like, honestly, for example, this one, like, that's not scary. That's just planes in the sky. Like, that could be anything, you know? But I do like how they're woven into the story and doesn't really feel forced. Then I'm gonna go over these next couple of books a little bit quicker because I've been filming for a very long time. I'm so sorry. But the next book I read this month is The Time of Contempt by Andrzej Sapkowski, and this is the 2nd book in which a series, which is adult fantasy, which I don't really know how to explain, but I feel like at this point, because the Netflix series came out, most people know what Witcher is. So I don't really feel too bad about not explaining it. But yeah, it's complicated. But yeah, I give it 2 out of 5 stars. I think with this book, I discovered why I don't really like the series. It's because the individual books don't have a plot. I'm so sorry to dish on it. But they don't. They don't have an overarching plot. Like, honestly, I don't know why this was a book. And not just together with the first one was one book, you know? It just, I feel like this series has an overarching plot, but so far the individual books don't have an overarching plot, which just, I don't know. And it also feels very episodic, like the short story collections a little bit, even though they were executed better, but because you knew something else was coming. This didn't really do that. This was just like, you're just moving on to the next chapter, have fun. But it would jump from thing to thing, and often it would just tell you instead of showing you. It was like, oh, here's a time jump from like 2 months, and then one character asking another character like, what happened in the past 2 months? And it's like, just, you could have shown that to us, you know, it would have been more fun. Yeah, I do really love the main characters and the world. I think it's very interesting, and what's going on in the world is also very interesting. But I feel like these books would very much benefit if you just stayed on the main characters. The next book I read this month is One by Sarah Crossan. This is a YA contemporary book told in verse. This is about Siamese twins, and we just follow one of them, and they are going to high school for the first time. I gave this 3 stars because I do think this is a very important read, and I think more people should read it because it's not a topic that's it's all about often. And I feel like the author did it respectfully. She did a lot of research, you can tell. But this book has what I call the Tall Girl problem, because Tall Girl is just such a phenomenon. Tall Girl is a movie, by the way, if you don't know. But like, that's way worse, because the problem of the main character in Tall Girl isn't really a problem, but the problem of the characters in this book is really a problem. But it's the idea that a main character has this problem, and as long as you don't have this problem, no matter what other problems you have, like, your life is perfect. And I hate that. So, for this book in particular, of course, a main character is the problem is they're Siamese twins, and they, like, are 2 persons sharing one body. Like, that's the kind of thing. And, for example, their sister has anorexia, but it's barely talked about, and we're constantly told, like, oh, a sister is so much more lucky because she is 1 person in one body instead of 2 persons in one body. I'm just like, Next book I read is Carry On by Rowell. This was another reread. I wanted to reread this to be able to read Wayward Son, which is a sequel that came out this year. Okay, this is a YA fantasy about Simon Snow, who is the chosen one, and this basically is like the last book in the series it's supposed to be, which doesn't make sense because there's 2 more books after this, but it's supposed to be like the last book in like a long fantasy series where the chosen one has finally come to beat the big evil, and yeah, that's what this is supposed to be. But Simon Snow is a chosen one that isn't able to do magic properly. Like, he's the most powerful wizard in the world, and he seems most likely that the prophecy about the most powerful wizard in the world is about him. But he can control his magic, and he's just not really good at magic. He's better at like sword fighting and stuff, and he likes doing that more. And yes, it's a fun twist on the chosen one trope. There's also a romance in this, enemies to lovers, which is great, by the way. And yeah, I feel like this is just a spoof on the genre, which is great. Like, a lot of people are bothered that this looks too much like Harry Potter, but like, that's the point. It's the spoof of it all. And I had so much fun with it. 5 stars. Then the last book I read this year, this month, this decade is Almost Midnight by Rowell. I wanted to read this because there's a collection of 2 short stories. One is Midnights and the other is Kindred Spirits. Midnights is about this boy and this girl who like meet on this New Year's Eve party and eventually start to grow friends over time and develop feelings for each other, but you only see them every New Year's Eve party like a couple of minutes before midnight. It's cute, it's fun, It's nothing really special. This whole collection was 3 stars for me because I feel like both stories are 3 stars for me. It's fun, it's cute, and yeah, it's nothing else. The second story, Kindred Spirits, is about a girl who decides she wants to go like wait in line for like a week before the new Star Wars movie, which is The Force Awakens, because it's a pretty old story. Because she wants to like, because when the only movies that came out in her lifetime were the prequel movies, but her father thought she was too young to go watch them. But yeah, now she decided to like line up, wait in line for this movie, and just camp out, because whatever she's heard about like previous movies and the lines from that, it always seems like this big celebration of Star Wars, and she wants to experience that. But she ends up in line with only 2 other people for most of the days. And yeah, it's about Star Wars. There's a small, I was gonna say romance, but not really. It's a friendship forming in there. And yeah, again, cute, fun. I prefer Midnights though, because I don't know, I feel like it was, I don't know, I like that one more, connected with me more. Oh my god, this is so long. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. I don't know how long this is gonna be once I edit it, but at this point, I'm just like, this video is so long. God damn it. I'm so sorry that you need to sit through this, but oh well. If you read any of these books, let me know in the comments below what you thought of them, as well as what are some of the books you read in the month of December, and I guess I'll see you guys next time.
Here I am again, the same old situation. Why does the God thing have to be so complicated? Should've